Hi everyone and welcome to TurboDonkey Entertainment. I'm Travis and today I'm going to be taking a look at Harvest. Harvest, published by Tasty Minstrel Games and designed by Trey Chambers, is a 2 to 4 player game that takes 30 to 75 minutes to play depending on the number of players. In the game, players are planting and harvesting various crops to sell on the market in order to buy more seeds for more crops, expand their farms, or even build buildings, all with the goal of having the most points at the end of the game, represented by gold stars on various game cards and game chits. Let's take a look at how the game plays. I've set up a typical 2-player game of Harvest as the game would begin. Each player has a character board, which shows their starting character resources here at the bottom, as well as any in-game and ending game bonuses that that character may receive. Each character board has the standard farmer will plant some dill on the opposite side, showing no in-game bonus and an additional 15 points scored at the end of the game as a reward for not having a bonus. So all players could play as that basic character if they wished. Players also have their own farm board, which has 1 field and 3 locked areas that can be used for additional expansion. In the center of the table is the town board, resource tokens, seeds, and the various cards that will be used throughout the game. Each turn, players will be placing farmers in various action spots on the board in order to gain resources, seeds, and buildings and other cards in order to expand their farm and gather crops. At the beginning of the game, players will create an action card deck consisting of 5 cards per player. Each turn, 1 action card per player is revealed at the beginning of the turn in the first phase. Next, players will reveal 3 initiative cards. Now I haven't already set these out, but each player will start the game with a random initiative card. In initiative order, low to high, players will swap their existing card with one shown in the 3 on the table. So in this example, the player with the initiative of 1 would trade this out for a card shown. By trading, they still leave 3 cards for the previous player, and they immediately take the bonus shown on their initiative card. In this case, it's a phantom pepper and fertilizer that go to the player. So this player would take phantom pepper seeds and 1 fertilizer. The second player would also do the same, as well as the third or the fourth in a larger game. After these are done, the unchosen initiative cards are shuffled back into the deck. Next, in initiative order, players will take turns placing their farmers one at a time, the farmers being these cute little meeples. They'll place them on farmer action locations on the board or action cards. Players cannot place a farmer where another player has already placed. So in a 2-player game, this farmer could not place here, would have to go in a location that shows more than 1 farmer icon. After placing a farmer, players immediately resolve the action, collecting resources or taking the pictured actions. Some worker slots cost stars in order to play, such as this build icon or this action card on the seed merchant. Stars can only be paid in gold stars, which means cultivated crops. This would mean that a farmer would have to plant seeds and then harvest them to gain these gold stars. The only crop that this is different on are the snap peas, which have a star with a silver and gold half. These can be used both as seeds and as crops, and most players do begin with at least 1 snap pea. After all players have gone through their actions, players will then reclaim their farmers. The action cards shown are discarded from the game, and then one new action card is revealed per player. If any buildings were purchased during the round, at this point, a new building card would be drawn as well. After 5 rounds, there will be no more action cards to draw, so this deck will be empty and the game immediately ends. Now, it does look like there's quite a bit going on here on the table. However, there are only 6 main actions available to players. 3 of the actions have to do with crops. Those actions are harvest, plant, and tend. The plant action will allow players to place as many of seeds as they have available in any of their available slots on their farm. In this case, this player playing a plant action could plant 2 of their seeds on this farm. For each silver star, they have to pay 1 fertilizer, so both of these would go away. Tending crops, the second action, is using water to expand the crops available. In this case, this player could tend crops by paying a water cost equal to the gold star cost of the crops in a field. For this, since the snap pea is silver/gold, this player could pay 2 water to expand into this field. These new crops come from the supply, not the player's own supply. The harvest icon, or the harvest action, will allow players to remove as many crops as they wish from any number of fields. Planting, harvesting, and tending can be done from any number of fields available to the player. So if a player did have multiple fields and multiple crops, they could plant, tend, or harvest in all the fields available to them. However, in an example of a tend here, players can't tend to grow this over into a new field. It only can apply to the field it's in. To get plants in these empty fields, they have to use the plant action with the fertilizer tokens. Harvesting will allow players to remove all of the icons from their fields that they wish and place them into their supply. This is useful for an example. If a broccoli is planted at a cost of 2 fertilizer into a field, when it's harvested, now the player has 5 gold stars from it. Those 5 gold stars can be used to pay for future actions such as the build or this warlock's castle, pardon me. The other 3 actions available are expand your farm, plow a field, and build. Expanding your farm adds one of these to the player's board area. So this creates 2 new locked positions, which can be used for later actions. Plowing a field takes one of these locked locations and places a blank field card on it. Finally, building allows a player to choose any building shown to place on a locked location. On the town board, building costs 2 stars. The stars shown here on these cards are for in-game scoring and not the cost of the card itself. Players can build as many buildings throughout the game as they have slots available. They cannot build if there are no more slots available. So, for example, if this player wanted to build, oops, there's one there. If this player wanted to build, they would have to first expand their farm. At the end of the game, players will add up all of their points. Points are scored from gold stars on buildings and fields, as well as gold stars on the harvested crops, and silver stars on seeds that have not yet been planted. Crops that are in a field, like this, still count their full amount. They just can't be used to purchase things in the game. Crops must be harvested first. The player with the most stars at the end of the game wins, and in case of a tie, the player with the most resource tokens left, meaning the fertilizer, water, and elixir. If you're wondering what the elixir is, it simply counts as all of the water needed for a single crop to be tended. So, for example, 1 elixir would count as both gold stars for this scarret. If there's still a tie, the player with the lowest initiative card wins. So there is a benefit to having a low initiative card further in the game. There are also additional bonuses that can be found throughout the various buildings, but we won't cover all of those in this video. They will be self-explanatory when you play, as well as any of the bonuses available to player boards, such as Will Plant Some Dill, who gets a solid 15 points simply for being in the game. Worker placement is one of my favorite game mechanics, so I really enjoyed the fact that Harvest centers around worker placement, even if it's just the 2 workers each turn. I like planning my turns out in advance and working on my strategy, knowing what's available, but I also like that Harvest throws in a little randomness with the action cards, as well as the initiative order being something that can kind of be controlled. It's not just passed from player to player of who gets to go first. It's a risk-reward system of getting to go first for a little less of a reward. Now, as with most games that I've reviewed on this channel, I haven't played anything but the 2-player version, so I don't know how this game plays specifically with 3 and 4 players, but I can imagine that it makes that initiative turn significantly more important, since it's not just do I go first or second, it's do I have 1 person go in front of me or 3, which can be a very big difference in what actions are available on both the town board, and the action cards themselves. Now, the one thing I did feel about the game is it is rather short. Again, a 2-player game takes about half an hour, and it is only 5 turns. And so with most worker placement games, this is a common theme. As soon as you feel like you get something going, the game ends, which could be done for play balance, could be done for time, but I think that's also something that can be said about worker placement in general, is there's always a good worker placement game always has that feeling at the end. If I just had 1 more turn, or if I just had 1 more worker, I could have accomplished this. And that kind of tells a story at the end of the game, to know this is what I was working for and I just missed it. Now, in the last game that I played of this, there was a 6-point difference in the end of the game. And I felt that that's a very strong indication of the game, of scoring over 40 points for each of us, and it's still being rather close, and it coming down to 1 or 2 actions that were chosen throughout the entire game that really made the difference. And looking back on the game afterwards, I thought maybe I could have done this differently, and that would have cascaded several events that would have done this. But again, there's still that little randomness with the action cards of I don't know what could have happened had a different action card come up, or had I taken a different resource at some point in the game. All in all, I really enjoyed Harvest. It's a simple game to teach, plays very quickly. I'm definitely a fan of these smaller box games. You can see it's a pretty small box. So it doesn't take up a lot of room on the shelf, but it packs a lot inside. There's over 100 tokens, over 100 resources, I believe, in both counts. So there's a ton of parts to this game, and I think one of the most unique pieces of it is the idea that you're purchasing the seeds at 1 cost, and once they're planted, they flip over and they have a different cost, and now they count for points, and now they can be harvested and spent back as resources. There's not a separate gold or money or something else in the game. You're to spend resources, you're losing points at the end of the game to potentially gain more. So there is a balancing act that's in this that I haven't seen in a lot of other games of this worker placement genre. So I really, really did enjoy it. Again, I think this is a mark of a good game. I wish it had been longer. I wish the game had kept going. Maybe 6 or 7 turns. And maybe that's something I'll try in the future. However, I think if you like worker placement and you like that resource management aspect of games, I think Harvest is a good fit. I love the theme, I love the artwork, it's cute, it's got some good puns on a lot of the cards, a lot of little inside fantasy jokes. And if you're familiar with Tasty Minstrels, one of their previous games, Harbor, it takes place in the same universe. So a lot of the artwork, it's a similar style artwork, some of the same ideas come across in both games. So I really enjoyed Harvest. It's one that I'll definitely be keeping, and I'm looking forward to playing with more than just 2 players. I really would like to see how this plays with 4 players. So if you've played the game, or if you pick the game up and play it with 4 players, please let me know in the comments what you think and how it plays at the different player levels, or just what your thoughts are on the game. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.